who do not have access to smartphones or the internet. And a Tunisian woman devotes her life to caring for injured pets. Watch World of Africa at these times only on WION. World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
From New York, we get you to the sandy shores of Durban, where I'll bring you all the glitz, glam, and happenings from the world of showbiz.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
The biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues. Sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths. Untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Raisha Sehgal. On the show today, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has begun his 6th West Asia tour to discuss a post-war plan to govern and secure Gaza. Well, during his visit, Blinken will hold talks with the Arab leaders in Saudi Arabia and Egypt on what the U.S. calls an architecture for lasting peace, while on the other hand, an Israeli delegation is visiting Washington, D.C. to discuss the plan on the assault on Rafah. We will, of course, be tracking how both these negotiations will influence a ceasefire deal in the ongoing war.
Well, that remains our top focus. Also on the show today, Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar will step down as the leader of the governing Fine Gael party immediately and resign as Ireland's Prime Minister. Varadkar has asked for a new leader to be elected ahead of the party's annual conference on the 6th of April.
Right, Shivan. We will also be joined by our correspondent, Susan Tehrani, live from New York. Later on the show, we will also be joined by our correspondent, Alison Lagrange, live from Durban, with updates from the world of entertainment. All that and a lot more lined up on the show this morning. But first, the headlines.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken meets Saudi Crown Prince as efforts continue to secure a ceasefire in the Gaza war. Continue.
Donors who supported Nikki Haley in her Republican primary campaign are set to switch their allegiance to Joe Biden as he prepares to face Donald Trump in the presidential election later this year.
Residents in the in the upscale neighborhoods on the outskirts of Haiti's capital Port-au-Prince barricade themselves in their homes amid reports of heavy gunfire and bodies found on the streets. Embassies evacuate foreign nationals.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bhutan visit has been postponed due to the ongoing inclement weather conditions over Paro Airport. Prime Minister Modi was scheduled to be in the Himalayan nation on a 2-day state visit starting today.
Multiple blasts at Pakistan's strategic Gwadar port after several armed assailants gain entry into the complex. 8 gunmen shot dead by the forces. 2 Pakistani soldiers also killed.
Australian Open champion Aryna Sabalenka says she is heartbroken after the death of her former boyfriend Konstantin Kolotsov. The world number 2 will take on her best friend Paula Badosa in the Miami Open tomorrow.
On Wednesday, the US Secretary of State began his 6th West Asia tour since the onset of the Gaza war by holding talks in Saudi Arabia.
And on the agenda are meetings with Arab foreign ministers and a top Palestinian official in Egypt.
Now, Blinken, hoping to secure a ceasefire in the Gaza war, met Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Jeddah as increasing strain shows in US ties with its ally Israel.
According to an Egyptian foreign ministry note, the US Secretary of State is meeting foreign ministers from Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Jordan. Blinken is also meeting the Emirati International Cooperation Minister and also the General Secretary of the Palestinian Liberation Organization's Executive Committee.
The note did not give details on the subject of the meeting. Egyptian security sources told news agency Reuters Arab nations will stress the urgency of developing plans for a political solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Such plans had been put on hold as mediators from Qatar, Egypt and the US sought to secure a deal for a ceasefire and the release of hostages and Palestinian prisoners.
Blinken has said that he would pursue talks on arrangements for governance, security and also a situation of post-conflict in Gaza. Not only that, also for lasting regional peace during his tour. The PLO Executive Committee General Secretary Hossein al-Sheikh is the top official in the Palestinian Authority.
He's confident of its President Mahmoud Abbas as well as an intermediary with Israel. The Palestinian Authority, which exercises limited governance in the West Bank, may play a key role in administering Gaza once fighting ends.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, however, has expressed strong opposition to its involvement in running the territory. Talks for a ceasefire deal continued in Qatar this week following failed attempts to secure an agreement ahead of the start of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan.
Netanyahu told US Republican senators on Wednesday that Israel will continue its effort to defeat Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Senator Jim Risch said, and I quote here, he's going to do what he said he's going to do. He's going to finish it.
The Israeli leader spoke to Republicans through a video link nearly a week after Chuck Schumer's speech. The Senate's Democratic Majority Leader recently branded Netanyahu an obstacle to peace and urged new elections in Israel. Schumer clarified rebuke of the Israeli Prime Minister as Netanyahu conducts a video call with the Senate Republicans.
Well, let me say this. I gave this speech out of a real love for Israel, and if you read the speech, we called only for there to be an election after the hostilities had declined, after Hamas was defeated.
Nearly 70 former US officials, diplomats and military officers wrote to Joe Biden on Wednesday. They urged the US president to warn Israel of serious consequences if it denies civil rights and basic necessities to Palestinians and expands settlements in the West Bank. Among the signatories were over a dozen ex-ambassadors as well as other retired State Department officials and ex-Pentagon, intelligence and White House officials. The signatories include Anthony Lake, a national security advisor to former President Bill Clinton.
Well, we're still on with the continuous coverage of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. On Wednesday, Israel's military said that it had killed around 90 gunmen and arrested 160 in a raid on Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital, an allegation that the Hamas group denies.
Well, Gaza officials say that nearly 32,000 Palestinians have now been confirmed dead since the start of the war. They have been killed with the Israeli onslaught, with thousands more dead feared lost under the rubble.
Al-Shifa, the Gaza Strip's biggest hospital before the war, is now one of the few healthcare centers and facilities that are partially operational in the north of the territory. It had also been housing displaced civilians. The Israeli army released video on Wednesday saying it found Hamas operatives money and weapons in Al-Shifa hospital.
The armed wing of the Palestinian militant group Hamas released footage and said to show fighters attacking Israeli forces close to Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City. The footage showed fighters carrying missiles, targeting Israeli forces and an explosion at a tank. The Palestine Health Ministry said Israeli forces killed 3 Palestinians and wounded another in an airstrike in the West Bank city of Jenin. Israel's military cited an operation targeting Palestinian militants. The Israeli military said an aircraft struck 4 Palestinian fighters in a car in the Jenin area. Among them, 2 senior Islamic Jihad members who had led the attacks on Israelis were also killed.
Moving on, Russia has intensified its attack on Ukraine, and this as Moscow continues to push with its plan to invade Kiev.
Now, in the latest, a Russian missile hit an industrial area in Ukraine's northern city of Kharkiv, killing at least 5 people and injuring 8. According to local authorities, the strike caused a major fire in a printing house. Rescuers worked at the site, carried out the search operation to look for survivors, while also fight the flames.
An industrial facility was hit, a civilian industrial facility. Unfortunately, there are people who have died. As of now, the emergency services say that there are 3 dead people, but we have information that there are more under the rubble while the fire is still raging. 5 people were injured. They were brought to our city hospital.
Ukraine's Kharkiv region, which borders Russia to the north and lies close to the front line, has suffered regular attacks. And that is during Russia's 2-year-old invasion.
Despite regular attacks carried out by Russia, Ukraine is striking back at Moscow. Kiev, which is in desperate need of aid from its allies, carried out an attack on the Russian city of Belgorod. According to authorities, in the Ukrainian strike, 1 person was killed while 2 more were wounded. Due to the Ukrainian shelling, 16 cars and several buildings were damaged in the city. Additionally, a school and 2 kindergartens were hit, but there were no children there as the region had announced early holidays starting the 20th of March. It was a close save.
I came to work today with our security guard Lesha. We heard that a phone message came in about a missile danger. We took shelter in this shelter where we always hide with the kids. Well, of course, it was loud. The glass was ringing, all the doors were shaking. After the last, so to speak, loudest bang, we understood that it was somewhere nearby. We didn't even suspect that it was at our own place. We thought it was close, but not at our place. Then, when everything quieted down, we saw the aftermath.
Meanwhile, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, during a trip to Kiev, said that a major U.S. aid package will get to Ukraine, as he vows that Washington's support will continue in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war.
I'm confident that we will achieve Plan A. We will get a strong bipartisan vote in the House for an assistance package for Ukraine, and we will get that money out the door as we should. So I don't think we need to speak today about Plan B.
Donald Trump is chasing a critical deadline in his most costly legal battle to date.
And that is if the former US president does not come up with a financial guarantee by Monday next week, New York's Attorney General can start the procedure of collecting on more than $454 million that Trump owes the state in a civil fraud lawsuit.
Now, New York state lawyers urge the court not to buy Trump's claims and that it's impossible to post a bond fully covering the amount while he appeals. The state is arguing that Trump and his co-defendants did not explore every possible option there is. Trump's lawyers said earlier this week that he could not find an underwriter willing to take on the entire amount.
A lawyer in the state attorney general's office has suggested other options, such as number one, he could divide the total among multiple bonds from different underwriters. Or number two, let a court hold some of Trump's real estate while he appeals. Trump on this has commented before saying that if you sell a property or do something and then you win the appeal, you don't have the property. The ex-president is challenging a judge's ruling last month that he, his company and key executives inflated his wealth on financial statements that were used to get loans and insurance.
Meanwhile, donors who supported Nikki Haley in her Republican primary campaign are set to switch their allegiance to Joe Biden. Haley, the former South Carolina governor, dropped out of the primary race earlier this month in the wake of Super Tuesday. Media mogul Jeffrey Katzenberg called Harry Sloan, who had previously helped bring in at least $550,000 for Haley through fundraising receptions, and asked him to donate to Biden instead. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
Biden's campaign apparatus already has a significant lead over the Republicans when it comes to funding. The Biden campaign recently announced it has $155 million in cash on hand and that it raised $54 million in the month of February alone. While former US President Donald Trump's committee said that it has $36.6 million in cash on hand at the end of January, with 1 month less of fundraising having been reported publicly. Well, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tarani gives us further insight into how this will impact the US presidential elections in the month of November. Take a look.
It's hard to tell at this point what effect the decision of Haley donors supporting Biden instead of Trump will have on the general elections, but it will likely bolster the Biden campaign's funding and momentum. Some believe the defection of prominent Republicans sends a strong message that the former president's style and rhetoric is unpopular within the party. Others say now more Trump supporters will be motivated to get out and vote.
Susan further explains what this will mean for Trump and his supporters. Listen to this.
The establishment of groups like Republican Voters Against Trump and Republican Accountability PAC suggests a concentrated effort to undermine Trump's re-election campaign at a time when the former president is facing a slew of legal problems, including the possibility of having his assets confiscated here in New York if he's not able to make bond by next week. Still, polls indicate that President Biden's low approval numbers and the erosion of large minority blocs has the campaign concerned, despite its strong fundraising prowess.
The violence in Haiti continues, and now the armed gangs have launched new attacks in the suburbs of Port-au-Prince.
Well, this is as they target peaceful communities near the Haitian capital. According to reports, at least 5 people died in and around the suburbs. The gangs have blocked some entrances as well, and this prompted the people in the communities to call radio stations pleading for help from Haiti's National Police Force.
The latest attack comes after gangs went on a rampage in the wealthy neighborhoods of Pétionville, where over 10 people were killed. A report by news agency Reuters claimed that at least 2 suspected gang members were killed during an attack on the neighborhood, which includes a leader known as Makandal. Earlier, media reports claimed a local population. They were also involved in a shootout in the area.
On the other hand, an alleged gang leader who recently escaped from a prison called his supporters to retake control of the Carrefour Fulis commune. Well, he escaped prison earlier this month.
I feel sad when I see the area devastated, when I see older people and children, and when I see how the armed gangs destroyed the biggest hospital in the area. I'm here today to help people return to their homes. It's not easy to do in one day, but with the support of the people, I'll do what I can.
Well, all these incidents are happening in what is supposed to be the safe part of the town. Earlier, the armed gangs took advantage of the absence of acting Prime Minister Ariel Henry to escalate violence. Till now, they have attacked several infrastructure, including police stations and government offices. Well, due to the international pressure, unelected Henry announced his resignation while being stranded in Puerto Rico.
Caribbean leaders and the United States are supporting a transitional council that could take over the country. The violence has killed scores of people, with some 17,000 people who have been left homeless amid the violence. Meanwhile, the U.S. Department of State announced that it has completed its first evacuation of U.S. citizens, while adding that 30 U.S. citizens will be able to leave Port-au-Prince daily. Due to the ongoing violence, the U.S. government has organized helicopter flights as well.
Meanwhile, Florida congressman also helped to evacuate Americans from an unknown location in Haiti. Mills shared the footage on his X account that said 13 Americans have been evacuated from Haiti.
All right, big news coming in from Ireland today. Prime Minister Leo Varadkar has decided to step down with national elections slated in a year from now.
And this move has caught the people off guard. Take a listen.
I knew that one part of leadership is knowing when the time has come to pass on the baton to somebody else, and then having the courage to do it. That time is now. So I am resigning as President and Leader of Fine Gael effective today, and will resign as Taoiseach as soon as my successor is able to take up that office.
Varadkar has cited both personal and political reasons. He will be holding office till his successor is appointed. Well, we might get clarity on that around 6th of April. Ireland is being governed by a three-party coalition. Varadkar's departure as head of the alliance does not automatically trigger a general election in the country. The rule only says that the next election must be called by early 2025.
Leo Varadkar came to power in 2017. It was a historic moment for the country because his elections brought a series of firsts. He was Ireland's youngest Prime Minister, and it was the first time an openly gay man was heading a once staunchly Catholic country. Varadkar then returned to the premiership in 2022 under a rotation arrangement.
Wait. Meanwhile, a terror attack has rocked Pakistan's Balochistan province.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says cross-border terrorism will no longer be acceptable. Prime Minister Sharif appreciated Pakistani security forces for thwarting the attack. He also paid tribute to the personnel killed during the operation. Sharif says attacks in Gwadar and Balochistan aim to interrupt the country's economic prosperity.
The United Nations Department for Safety and Security also released a statement regarding the attack. It said several explosions followed by continuous firing were reported during the attack on the complex, while adding that there are no immediate reports of casualties, as 7 personnel from 3 UN agencies based in Gwadar and 2 UN agencies on these missions are safe.
On Wednesday evening, the Gwadar port came under attack at around 4 p.m. local time. On your screens right now are visuals from the incident. The Balochistan Liberation Army has claimed responsibility for this attack, in which 8 of its militants and 2 of Pakistan's soldiers were killed during an intense gunfire exchange. Armed assailants had forcibly entered the Gwadar Port Authority complex in the Balochistan province and opened fire. Multiple blasts were also reportedly heard by people in the area. The BLA released a statement claiming that they attacked the offices of Pakistan's intelligence agencies in the area. And this is the second such terror attack in 2 months.
Well, the Gwadar port is a crucial part of the Pakistan-China Economic Corridor, also known as CPEC. Gwadar is located near the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial oil shipping route in the Arabian Sea, making this deep water port in Pakistan a key part of the $60 billion economic passage, also known as CPEC, a cornerstone of China's wide-reaching Belt and Road Initiative, which focuses on linking China's Xinjiang province with Pakistan's Gwadar port. Well, it's time now for a quick short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. When we get back, lots more on the other side. Ahead of in the Lok Sabha elections in India, beginning in April, the Supreme Court of India has agreed to hear a public interest litigation, a PIL, that challenges the practice of distributing freebies. We'll get you the full report on the other side.
Also on the other side, French regulators slapped Google with a hefty fine for violating the EU's intellectual property rules. The fine, that totals nearly $272 million, revolves around Google's AI services utilizing content from media publishers without proper authorization. We'll get you all the details on the other side of this short break. Stay tuned.
The biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues. Sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths. Untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
From New York, we get you to the sandy shores of Durban, where I'll bring you all the glitz, glam, and happenings from the world of showbiz.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
On our show, we're privileged to meet all kinds of extraordinary business leaders, but honestly, I've never met one as Ankit Agarwal.
My father was in hospital, and when my father was getting discharged from the hospital, he had a really bad time in spite of him having an insurance policy. 2015 is when I joined the Kar Dekho group and I got a chance to build out Insurance Dekho here. I firmly believe that if you're solving for a right problem with your heart at the right place, then you will build a business which people will know on their own. So I think what my grandfather taught me and what I saw my father practicing stayed with me in life.
Economic turmoil and global unrest have cast a shadow over President Joe Biden's approval ratings.
The rockets are continuing to be fired by Hamas in Gaza, although at a slower rate than previously.
So, right now, we are with the volunteers from the Aleppo municipality. They are still trying to go to the rescue for the people they can find out.
India has emerged as a major diplomatic force at the world stage.
The rising cost of living in Nigeria continues to impact citizens from all walks of life.
The citizens of Gujarat witnessed a mega roadshow here in the city of Ahmedabad.
China is South Africa's largest trading partner for 134 years straight.
A domestic aircraft carrying 72 people on board crashed in Pokhara city in central Nepal.
165 injuries have been moved. 61 people are confirmed dead and rescue operations continue around me.
After receiving an entire season's rainfall in a span of 48 hours, Chennai city has literally been brought to its knees.
For WION, World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One with me, Raisha and Shivan. And here on the show so far, we were discussing how US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on his 6th West Asia tour. He recently met the Saudi Crown Prince as efforts continue to secure a ceasefire in the Gaza war.
And in India, coming forward, we'll be bringing you in this half hour of a World DNA. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case regarding which challenges the practice of giving out freebies before elections. And that is a practice which has been continuing in all over the world, of course, here in India as well, before state and general elections. We are going to be bringing you those updates as well. For now, let's get you started with the headlines. This is World DNA.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken meets Saudi Crown Prince as efforts continue to secure a ceasefire in the Gaza war.
Donors who supported Nikki Haley in her Republican primary campaign are set to switch their allegiance to Joe Biden as he prepares to face Donald Trump in the presidential election later this year.
Residents in the upscale neighborhoods on the outskirts of Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, barricade themselves in their homes amid reports of heavy gunfire and bodies found on the streets. Embassies evacuate foreign nationals.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bhutan visit has been postponed due to ongoing inclement weather conditions over Paro Airport. PM Modi was scheduled to be in the Himalayan nation on a 2-day state visit starting today.
Multiple blasts at Pakistan's strategic Gwadar port after several armed assailants gained entry into the complex. 8 gunmen shot dead by the forces. 2 Pakistani soldiers also killed.
Be it state or general elections in India, polling season brings in a wave of freebies that political parties employ as a last-ditch effort to secure their vote bank.
Right, Shivin. But ahead of Lok Sabha elections in India, beginning in April, the Supreme Court of India has agreed to hear a case that challenges this very practice.
Well, the top court has listed a public interest litigation to be heard on Thursday, which challenges the practice of political parties promising freebies during elections. The PIL will be heard by a 3-member bench headed by Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud.
The case calls for India's Election Commission to use its power and deter political parties from this practice by freezing election symbols and cancelling party registrations.
According to reports, the plea urges the court to, and I'm quoting here, recognize that offering irrational freebies funded by the public before elections can unduly sway voters and undermine the integrity of democracy.
Well, to give our viewers a basic explanation of what freebies entail, a 2022 Reserve Bank of India report defined freebies as a public welfare measure that is provided free of charge.
In the political landscape, the debate around freebies and the act of using them as a tool to lure voters is not new. In the 5 state elections held back in November last year, all major political parties announced a slew of freebies during their political rallies, ranging from free electricity, subsidized gas cylinders, free bus rides for women, and so on. Monetary promises like monthly financial aid to women were also the highlight of several parties' poll manifestos.
And now with election dates announced and the procedure of filing nominations kicking off, the parties are yet again speculated to announce freebies as a part of their poll promises, yet again raising questions on the utilization of taxpayer money for the votes. And in a solemn gathering, foreign envoys converged to pay homage to the holy relics of Lord Buddha in Delhi.
Well, further underscoring the profound cultural ties between India and nations worldwide that are deeply rooted in the legacy of Buddhism. Now, the relics returned back to homeland India after a month-long exposition in Thailand, organized by India's Culture Ministry in collaboration with the International Buddhist Confederation. Now, the holy relics witnessed an overwhelming response from devotees, with over 4 million people paying their respects across various cities in Thailand, with some devotees coming from neighboring countries like Laos and Cambodia. The success of the exposition reaffirmed the centuries-old civilizational connection between India and the countries of the Mekong region. It also served as a poignant reminder of India's cultural heritage and its enduring influence on the spread of Buddhism across Asia.
Prime Minister has always been of the opinion that neighbourhood first policy and also look east policy. And we felt with this travel of the relics, if I may use the word Dharma Yatra, on which the relics had travelled to Thailand, and the number of people which seem to have visited to pay their respect and homage is close to 4.1 million people in just about 26 days, including travel times.
Most of them, I believe that they feel that once in their lifetime is kind of the event that once in their lifetime that they could be able to pay respect directly to the relics of Buddha, which is kind of representative of the Buddha that we believe.
Last time the Buddha relics were in Sri Lanka was way back in 2012, and it would be a good time now for the relics to come back to Sri Lanka. With the downturn of the economy and there are very hard times that the people are going through, and this will give some solace to the people of Sri Lanka.
This is very important to show to the world the strength and the depth of Indian civilization also when it comes to Buddhism. This is a philosophy and religion quite well known already in Brazil and being studied in our best university.
In East Asia, Buddhism has great influence on the society and the people as well. So when you look back to the whole the process, the trajectory, you have to trace back to India. And then in that sense, India is the motherland, not only for Hindu, but also for a lot of East Asian Buddhists.
Devotees continue to throng here in New Delhi to get a glimpse of the Buddhist relics. Now, recently these relics went to Thailand, where of course 4 million people got a glimpse of that. But above all, the exposition shows India's connect with not only Thailand, but with the wider world and Asian region, given India as a civilizational state is the center of Buddhism, and India was able to prove that with the month-long exposition of the Buddhist relics to Thailand. Sudhan Sibal for WION in New Delhi.
On the world of business now. As expected, the US Federal Reserve left rates unchanged for the 5th time in a row.
More importantly, the Fed projects 3 rate cuts by the end of this year. And here's what Fed Chair Jerome Powell had to say. Listen in.
Today, the FOMC decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged and to continue to reduce our securities holdings. Our restrictive stance of monetary policy has been putting downward pressure on economic activity and inflation. As labor market tightness has eased and progress on inflation has continued, the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals are moving into better balance.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell has indicated the possibility of 3 rates cut this year. Powell's speech, however, gives greater insights into what the Fed thinks about the US economy. 2 things are clear. Number 1, inflation is slowly easing in the US and solid economic growth will continue. A key measure of inflation is also predicted to keep falling to end the year at 2.6%.
The economy is expected to grow 2.1% this year, way above the 1.4% growth seen last year. At the same time, the unemployment rate is only expected to hit 4% by the end of 2024. The Fed still foresees a soft landing to ensure that growth continues as inflation is brought under control. But a soft landing will depend on trajectory that inflation takes in the coming weeks. The ongoing exodus of foreign companies from Russia has resulted in $385 million in revenues in 2024 so far.
Right, Shivin, and this stems from an exit tax policy implemented when companies began leaving Russia after the Ukraine invasion began. The policy requires departing businesses to contribute at least 10% of their sale price to the federal budget. This tax, coupled with stricter exit procedures demanding government approval and sale discounts, it has become a major source of revenue for Russia.
While Western sanctions aimed to cripple the Russian economy, the country appears to be weathering the initial storm. Russia's long-standing position as the world's top oil exporter, combined with recent high oil prices, has provided a crucial financial buffer.
Meanwhile, evidence suggests preemptive measures such as diversification efforts and support from other strong allies helped mitigate the immediate impact of sanctions. However, the long-term economic picture remains uncertain, especially if oil prices or export volumes decline.
The Russian fight back suggests that sanctions haven't had the crippling effect initially anticipated on the Russian economy. However, this is a short-term snapshot, and the long-term economic consequences of sanctions are yet to be fully understood. Moreover, Russia faces a looming demographic crisis with a declining population and workforce. These factors, coupled with potential fluctuations in the oil market, pose significant challenges to Russia's future economic stability.
On the world of technology now, France's competition watchdog has slapped Google with a hefty fine for violating EU intellectual property rules.
Well, the fine that totals nearly $272 million revolves around Google's AI services utilizing content from media publishers without proper authorization. Reportedly, Google's AI-powered chatbot Gemini was trained on content from publishers and news agencies without their consent. And as part of settlement proceedings, Google has agreed not to contest the penalty and has proposed a set of remedial actions to address shortcomings on its part. In a statement, Google expressed acceptance of the settlement, stating, and I'm quoting here, "It is time to move on." Google added to its statement saying that we want to focus on the larger goal of connecting people with quality content and on working constructively with French publishers.
Now, back in 2022, French regulators accepted commitments from Google to ensure fair negotiations with news organizations for using their content to train their chatbots. Under the agreement, Google is obligated to provide transparent payment offers to news groups within 3 months of receiving a copyright complaint. Google has argued that the $272 million fine is disproportionate. This fine stems from a copyright dispute in France over online content. Well, the complaint was made by major news organizations, including the French international news agency AFP. The watchdog specifically highlighted Google's AI chatbot Gemini, which allegedly used data from various media outlets and news agencies without proper disclosure to the concerned parties or regulatory bodies. And this dispute is a part of a broader initiative by the officials globally to compel tech companies, including Google, to compensate news publishers for their content.
Russia has warned the US regarding the use of SpaceX satellites for spying.
The Musk-owned spacecraft company recently signed a $1.8 billion defense contract with the Pentagon.
Now, Russia said that it is aware of the US government's deal with private space companies and has warned the US government, saying such moves could make the US satellites legitimate targets of the Russian force.
We are aware of Washington's efforts to attract the private sector to serve its military space ambitions. We have repeatedly publicly addressed this issue in the informational sphere. And of course, working with partners on international platforms within the frameworks of international organizations, we have noted the accelerating and extremely dangerous trend of the US and its allies using satellites and corresponding ground infrastructure, including commercial civilian systems such as Starlink.
Understand that SpaceX is at the forefront of a secret US project. According to sources who are close with this program, it is constructing a network of spy satellites with the US intelligence agency. SpaceX Starshield business unit is making this network in partnership with the National Reconnaissance Office, also known as NRO. The NRO is a part of the US intelligence community. It operates spy satellites and shares satellite data with various government agencies. Reports further suggest that the network aims to eliminate blind spots and can provide continuous coverage of Earth's activities.
All right, next up, let's get you some stories that are making headlines in the world of sport, starting with Australian Open champion Aryna Sabalenka, who says that her heart is broken after the death of her boyfriend